Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego's lowest paid workers are about to get a raise. And a new report says Californians are not listening to the call to cut back on water. Water wasters could be in for some hefty fines.
And I'm Peggy Pico. Also coming up, many cancer patients aren't getting the pain medicine they need. How to balance prescription drug use while preventing abuse. How California compares to other states in pain management and access to medication.
Surf's Up at the Mingei Museum will take you on a tour of their newest exhibit. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. California's water managers are debating tough new rules tonight as a new report gives us a grim forecast of what 3 years of ongoing drought could cost us. $2.2 billion and more than 17,000 jobs. That report comes from researchers at UC Davis. At the same time, the state says water consumption went up 1% despite calls for a 20% reduction in the midst of the worst drought in living memory.
Fields are going fallow. Thousands of people are going to be out of work. There are communities that are running out of water and are having lines from other communities sent to them. They're bathing out of buckets.
San Diegans, the Water Board, by the way, is considering a $500 fine for wasting water. Local agencies would have to enforce the rules. San Diegans earning minimum wage will see an increase in their paycheck starting at the end of the year. Now, last night, City Council voted to pass a minimum wage ordinance. Instead of putting it on the ballot, the minimum wage will go up in increments. By 2017. It will be $11.50 an hour. City Council President Todd Gloria says the increase will also help San Diego's economy.
San Diegans earning minimum wage will secure about $1,400 more per year thanks to the council's action yesterday. This translates into an additional $260 million a year into the pockets of low-income San Diegans, which they will then in turn spend on necessities like food, shelter, and clothing, which will help benefit our local economy.
Now, the increase goes up to $9.75 at the end of the year. Mayor Kevin Faulconer's office released a statement on the ordinance today. It says he does not support the increase and also says the mayor won't, quote, put the brakes on our recovering economy by placing a hindrance on local small businesses, end quote. Faulconer could veto the action, but the council could then override the veto with its 6-3 majority vote. Chamber of Commerce says the minimum wage increase will have a negative impact on San Diego businesses. In a statement, it says, quote, the Chamber is seriously discussing with the business community the options available to further oppose the council's rushed decision, end quote. They say they will make a decision on how to move forward very soon. San Diego is now one of several California cities to enact a minimum wage ordinance. Peggy Pico takes a closer look tonight at possible short and long-term impacts.
The 6-3 vote fell along party lines in favor of raising the minimum wage in San Diego to $11.50 an hour by 2017. Here to talk about what happens next and the possible short and long-term impact of the decision is economist Eric Bruvold, president of National University System Institute for Policy Research. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Now, Eric, Mayor Faulconer opposes this plan. He says it'll result in job loss and hiring. Is there any evidence of those sort of fallouts from other cities that have already enacted minimum wage raises?
So minimum wage has been one of the subjects that's probably been studied the most ever. And so the studies really suggest that the impacts don't fall either way, that there's not too much job loss that's associated with it, and that the spending power that's given to lower wage employees sort of gets sucked up and discounted by increased prices as they reverberate through the economy.
So with that in mind, which industries might be impacted first if this ordinance goes into effect on January 1st?
Sure. So on the individual business levels, there probably will be some impacts, and that'll be felt in retail, hospitality, and some service businesses like home health care aides or, for example, on the public sector side, schoolyard monitors or crossing guards.
Could this impact other employees, let's say, that aren't making minimum wage? I'm thinking of mid-level employees.
Sure. So the way that businesses often try and accompany this is sort of three ways. One, productivity gains, and that's kind of the best case scenario. Secondly, increasing prices. But in some of these industries, they compete against global competitors, Amazon, eBay, Craigslist. And so the third way is to cut benefits. And so that's going to impact not only low-wage workers, but mid-level workers, as free parking or free food or discounts are done away with.
And part of this plan, speaking of benefits, is a 5 sick days a year. What are the pros and cons of offering employees sick days?
So the proponents will say that there's health benefits, that obviously, sometimes some industries just don't want sick people to come in, and so this
food
way,
servers, for example.
Food servers or people that work around other folks, and so by paying people for a sick day, they're able to keep people from making other people sick. On the flip side is that for very small businesses, oftentimes that's very disruptive, as they have to pay wages and then find a second or third or fourth person to come in and do the work, and so there can be disruptions that way, sort of at the very small enterprise levels on the negative side.
When you're saying small, like less than 5 people. Or something.
3, 4 people that hire somebody part-time to staff the business during the evening hours. That person goes out sick. You have to pay those wages, and you have to find that replacement worker to come in for him.
The mayor can veto this minimum wage proposal. If he does, how does this play out? What are some of the options?
So the mayor has a particular amount of time. I want to say it's 2-3 weeks to look at the ordinance and send it back to veto. Then the council has a period of time where they have to go ahead and take time to take another action, a 6-3 vote, so repeat the vote from last night, and that would override the mayor's veto. And then there's also a provision in the city charter so that a third party, an outside group, can collect signatures. I want to say it's on the order of 40, 50,000 signatures from San Diego voters, registered voters, and to put it on the ballot.
Do you think it's a good idea to put it on the ballot?
Well, I think that, I'm not necessarily now, I'm not sure I'm a great idea on the referendum process, but I'm kind of a big believer that when you have controversial policies, there's something good about going and asking the people for it. It builds consensus, it has a dialogue, it includes more people in that process, and so I'm a big believer in that sort of participatory democracy.
Do you think it was a good move to approve it now in the makeup of the city council?
I leave that for other people that opine upon the politics of the matter. I will say that there is some concern about the difference that we're going to create between San Diego and bordering cities. We did some analysis. About 250,000 people in San Diego live within a mile of a border of another city in our county, here in the city of San Diego. About 50,000 workers work within a mile of an opposing district. And so you'll have this weird situation where in Rancho Bernardo you have one wage, half a mile down the hill in the city of Poway you have a lower minimum wage, and businesses and consumers may make some choices that don't work to the city's benefit because of that wage differential that you have.
And ultimately, we're talking about $1.50 more between the state minimum pay when it gets to that level and ours. Is that really significant?
Well, $1.50 now. Remember, we've also got an inflation adjuster, and we've got a sick day requirement that's going to be more generous than the city, than the state. And again, if we look at places where we have this bordering difference, it averages about a 32-cent difference, not $1.50. And so we're in uncharted water here. It will be interesting to see how San Diegan businesses and San Diego consumers respond to that difference.
All right, economist Eric Brewald, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The salaries and benefits of University of California employees are now available for public viewing online. The data includes anyone who was on payroll last year, including full-time, part-time, and temporary workers. The website also includes pay information about other state employees and was started actually 4 years ago by the state controller. The venture capitalist who is financially supporting the movement to turn California into 6 states turned in ballot signatures at the Sacramento County Elections Office today. Tim Draper says they have collected over 1 million signatures, and having 6 states would let Californians feel closer to their government.
I want to be closer to my state. I want to be close. I want to be well represented. I want my state to reflect my interests, and I think all of Californians feel the same way.
The signatures were turned in a little too late to get the measure on the November ballot, so it might qualify for the 2016 state ballot. Draper says Californians need more time to realize how great 6 Californias could be. House Republicans say they want to call out the National Guard to handle the surge of Central American migrants in South Texas. They also say they want to streamline deportations by hiring more immigration judges and changing existing law requiring hearings for Central American children. Democrats are opposed to the idea. 57,000 migrants have arrived at the border since October. Today, Border Patrol detained a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who is in the U.S. illegally. Jose Antonio Vargas was in Texas to cover the situation there. He was actually detained when he tried to board a flight back to Los Angeles. Vargas was brought to the U.S. when he was 12. He's been an immigration activist since 2011. He was released this afternoon. Illumina says it will expand its presence in San Diego, building a new facility and creating 300 more jobs. The company is taking advantage of a $1.5 million tax rebate from the city. The deal goes to full council next week for approval. A report from the county shows suicides and deaths linked to methamphetamine have reached an all-time high. The report comes from the medical examiner's office. It says there were 441 suicides in the county last year, with the highest rate among men ages 55 to 64. The report also shows 190 people died of a meth overdose. And prescription drugs were the most common cause of accidental death. Well, better pain relief for people with cancer, AIDS, and other serious conditions is the goal of policies at the state level. Peggy Pico looks at a new report on how California ranks when it comes to pain management.
The American Cancer Society released a state-by-state report card today, ranking how well a particular state's controlled substance policies promotes effective pain management, while simultaneously lowering the risk of prescription drug abuse. California, along with 15 other states, got a B+. Here to help put this issue into context is Dr. Timothy Furnish with the Center for Pain Management at UC San Diego. And welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Furnish, the American Cancer Society said about 2/3 of cancer patients suffer from untreated pain. What's the scope of serious illness, people with serious illness dealing with inadequate pain management?
You know, I think in the world, there is a significant issue with cancer pain patients and other pain patients getting access to prescription medications, especially opioids. In the United States, it would be a little bit difficult to say that we have an under-prescribing of controlled substances, especially opioids, especially considering that we, as a nation, consume the vast majority of prescription opioids in the world. However, I would also say that pain remains an undertreated condition, and that doesn't necessarily always mean that that we're not giving enough opioids.
So there might be other ways to treat it.
Exactly.
I see. What are some of the major roadblocks in getting pain treatments for patients?
I think that there potentially are some access issues, especially with pain specialists. In the past, 15 or 20 years, primary care doctors have followed the early pain specialists in prescribing more and more opioids, and I think may not send patients for specialist care quite early enough.
The report is titled Achieving Balance in State Pain Policy. What makes for a balanced or good pain policy, in your opinion?
Well, I think that the report actually does a fairly good job of outlining that, that they want to make sure that pain is considered an important therapy in a regulatory standpoint by medical boards and the legislature, that we are not equating addiction with dependence or tolerance to pain medications. This is a natural process that occurs, that people will become tolerant to opioids over time, but that's not the same thing as addiction. They want to make sure that patients have access to opioids when it's really necessary, and that there is adequate education for physicians on how to manage these medications and how to prescribe.
I know California has a pain prescription database. Can you explain how it works and if you think it's effective?
I think it's a key tool in managing patients' pain and dealing with both pain management but also the addictions issue with opioids. So the database looks at or collects information about all the controlled substance prescriptions, which includes things like opioids, but some other medications like benzodiazepines, which are things like Valium, and it stores that in a database that's only accessible by physicians who've gone through a special enrollment process with the Department of Justice, so that we can then look to see where people have gotten prescriptions and who has been writing them and what doses they've been on.
Earlier in the newscast, we heard prescription drug overdose continues to be one of the leading causes of unnatural deaths in San Diego County. What else do you think needs to be done to prevent or reverse prescription drug abuse?
You know, it's interesting. There's been some very preliminary evidence that as we've really been focusing on this, some of the doses have started to come down. In Florida, for instance, recently there's been some legislative action that has reduced some of the prescribing, and they're beginning to see a turn in the number of deaths, and that they may be coming down. I think that with cancer pain patients, we're dealing with a completely separate issue. The biggest problem, in my mind, is the non-cancer chronic pain patients. And there are a number of them that are very appropriate to be on opioids, and maybe for long periods of time. But when the doses get very high and the prescribing becomes uncontrolled or not done in a very careful manner, sometimes it can get out of hand. And those patients clearly are at higher risk of auto accidents, falls, injuries, but also potentially death.
All right, well, we have more on this report on our website, kpbs.org. Dr. Timothy Furnish, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, the latest on the violence in the Middle East. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
So what does a national magazine, a house on Coronado Beach, and the Navy SEALs have in common? They all benefit from the naming of California's first show house of the year.
I would say this house is all about family gathering, friends gathering, enjoying the beach, and really just enjoying each other's company.
All right, you want to take us in?
Sure. Come on in.
As soon as you walk through the door, you're looking straight through to the Pacific Ocean. This 4,500 square foot home overlooking Sunset Park in Coronado comes with 4 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, and 3 powder rooms for all those friends, family, and guests to use.
The skylight operates so it allows all of the warm air to come up and out.
The architectural designer, Dorian Lytle, takes us to the second level where the dining and kitchen areas open into one great room.
It's really the nicest place in the house. You get some privacy from street level. So we really like to do it this way. It has a lot of benefits.
Coastal Living magazine has named this Show House of the Year, the first in California to be featured in its upcoming October issue. The builder, John O'Brien, says they created a partnership with the magazine and homeowners to provide public tours through early September. Proceeds must go to a nonprofit.
We're standing behind them.
And they chose the Navy SEALs Foundation.
And this is Coronado. This is the headquarters of the Navy SEAL Foundation. This is the 51st year since they've been founded. And so it's been, it's the most exciting part of this whole show house.
So when you visit this home at 100 Ocean Drive and pay the $25 tour fee, just note some of the proceeds are going to support the families of nearly 4,000 active duty Navy SEALs at a time when military families are struggling with multiple deployments.
And tickets for the tour can be purchased at the Coronado Visitors Center. Take a look at this. The largest faceted sapphire in the world, about the size of a dinner plate, no kidding. Weighing in at more than 31,000 carats, it's part of a touring collection of rare stones, including one called the Ophir Mystique, a gem that's a real mystery.
This stone here was analyzed by GIA and other leading authorities and could not be identified, suggesting that it is in fact a new mineral and possibly the largest and only of its kind.
The sapphire and the whole collection are considered priceless, with 9 separate Guinness World Records because they're so valuable. The collection, well, it's not open to the public. Comic-Con is a little more than a week away, and organizers say they're trying something different to handle the crowds at one of the event's most popular venues, Hall H. Take a look at this video of Hall H, the line last year. Folks waiting for hours to get in for a preview of a movie or TV show. Now this year, Comic-Con will pass out wristbands for folks to get into the first event of the day. They say it's not a guarantee, but should cut down on line cutters. There is a new exhibit at Balboa Park's Mingei Museum called Surfcraft. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando tells us it challenges stereotypes and the culture of board riding.
About 11 years ago, I got really into sort of researching this history of Bob Simmons, and the board that inspired me to do that was a board that Steve Liss invented in 1967 or so here in San Diego, which is called the Fish, and it's a little dual keel board. I got really into just tracing that history. And yeah, my passion has been design evolution. That's my main focus.
The new Surfcraft exhibit explores board design in the context of Suetsu Yanagi's Mingei philosophy about the importance of craft and artistry in creating functional objects.
I read that, and it had an impact on me, and I liked the way it made me think about the whole craft and design of surfboards.
That's why Richard Kenvin decided to curate the exhibit at the Mingei International Museum. He wanted to show that boards are both striking examples of functional design and an American art form. Kenvin says the exhibit provides insights into the evolution of the surfboard over the centuries. The oldest board on display is from the 1800s.
It's a Hawaiian paipo-style board made out of breadfruit wood. Once it was done being used as a paipo board, they used it as a table to pound poi for probably 100 years. So that's an interesting example of multiple use Mingei. This board here was made in 1947, which is almost unbelievable, but this is the riding surface here, which is a very short board, about 5 feet long, with dual fins and a slot in it. He was trying to drain water off the spoon of the deck, and then he had some other hydrodynamic reasons why he was doing it. So it just gives an idea of how Simmons's mind was working with mathematics to create machines, that's what he called them, to ride waves. This is an Itago board from Japan. These would be floorboards in the fishing boat and also used to clean fish. But then fishermen would use them to get from the boat to shore. Once Mark Richards created the twin fin for pro surfing, that's really, he was bringing back what Simmons said about how boards work with fins on the rail. And from 1979 to the present day, nobody ever won the world title on a board with just one fin ever again. It's all been about boards that have the fins out on the rails, which is what Simmons defined as being like the machine for high performance surfing. And this is the last board in the show, and it's actually an industrial craft board that was made in Thailand in a factory. And it's also part of a project by a group called Sustainable Surf, trying to make more sustainable boards. It has a recycled foam blank. The skin is paulownia wood, which is sustainable tree. It has no fiberglass or lamination on the outside. The wood is the lamination. To me, this board sort of represents what Yanagi was talking about going from hand craftsmanship to good mass-produced design. So this generation of surfers that's in their 20s and younger have been exposed to a lot more history and a lot more designs, and they have empirical knowledge. They go out and ride the boards, they make them themselves, and they're very open-minded. They don't limit themselves to one thing.
Surfcraft hopes to open minds to both the craft and artistry that has gone into the evolution of machines to ride the waves. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Surfcraft design and the culture of board riding will be on view at the Mingei through early January. Well, things might be warming up a bit along the coast over the next few days. Temperatures in the low 70s, mostly cloudy though. It will also be a bit cloudy in the morning for the inland valleys, but that'll give way to sunshine by afternoon. Temperatures inland near 80. Clear and sunny in the mountain areas. Temperatures in the upper 70s there. As for the desert, not much of a change. Plenty of sun. Triple-digit temperatures. Let's recap our top stories tonight. California's ongoing drought could cost the state $2.2 billion and more than 17,000 jobs. State water managers are considering a possible $500 fine for water wasters. And San Diego's lowest paid workers will get a raise at the end of the year. City Council passed a minimum wage increase rather than putting the issue before voters. It will go to $9.75 an hour by the end of this year and up to $11.50 an hour by 2017. Now, business leaders are opposed to the increase and say they're considering their options. Of course, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.